So here's something nobody tells you. Being bad at English can absolutely mess up your Spanish. Not vocabulary, not motivation, not effort, the structure. I had the words, I had more vocabulary than I thought, but I kept making the same mistakes because I couldn't clearly identify subjects, grammatical definitions, or the sentence flow. And the dumbest part, the only Spanish words I didn't know were the words I also didn't know in English. So that was a huge wake-up call. So your brain is a pattern machine, whether you like it or not. Your brain doesn't wait for permission when it comes to language. It instinctively snaps into the fastest, most familiar pattern it knows. And for most of us, that's our native language. And for me, obviously, that's English. So when I'm speaking Spanish, my brain just goes, cool, let's just reuse English structure and swap out the words. Doesn't mean rebel against Spanish. It's just the brain doing what it's wired to do. Save energy by recycling what's easiest. That's where the problem starts. I'm not fighting Spanish grammar or sentence flow. I'm accidentally defaulting to the English ones. And that's why I kept making the same mistakes over and over. It wasn't because I lacked vocabulary or motivation. It was because my brain wasn't switching patterns. It was leaking English into Spanish like a slow drip that just sabotages your progress. This isn't a skill issue, it's a pattern switching issue. Your brain is like a pattern machine, is just gonna latch on to whatever is the quickest route unless you're consciously training to do that otherwise. The good news is that this problem is totally fixable, and becoming aware of your default patterns is the first step to rewiring your brain to embrace new ones. I first noticed this pattern interference problem when I actually mapped my learning inside my language operating system. That was the moment I shifted from mostly absorbing Spanish to actually creating it. English patterns became obvious. That's where a lot of people plateau without even realizing. So you might be thinking, does this mean that I'm bad at learning languages? And obviously not at all. It means that your brain is smart. It's conserving the energy in the way that it knows best. And it means that you're human. So what matters is that you can train your brain to recognize it's defaulting and just gently guide it towards true Spanish patterns. So don't beat yourself up for these little mistakes. They're obviously not signs of failure, just evidence that your brain's pattern machine's at work. This is the real work of language learning, recognizing, switching, and practicing new patterns until they become your fastest route. That's how you break free of your native language's shadow and start truly speaking Spanish. So this is why this week felt a little different. I turned on my mic, opened up the lesson like I always do, and started talking about the day, the weather, lifestyle questions, the usual stuff. But this time it felt just a little different. It felt light, no pressure, no fear of sounding stupid. I still made some mistakes. The same mistakes actually popped up every other sentence. Sometimes every fourth sentence. Sometimes I repeated the exact same error again and again. But nobody cared. There's no judgment, no frustration, just calm acknowledgement. Oh, this is the structure? Okay. And just move on. That simple feedback loop was crazy to me, because you say something wrong, you get corrected, continued. That's learning in the purest form. No shame, no freeze, just forward motion. So, for so long, I thought mistakes just meant failure. That were the signs that I wasn't cut out for this. But this lesson reminded me again that mistakes are part of the process. They're data. They're the way your brain figures out what works and what doesn't. This mindset shift, seeing errors as feedback instead of flaws, opens the door to real progress. When you stop fearing mistakes, you stop holding yourself back. You start speaking more, trying more, learning more. And that's exactly what this week felt like. Freedom to be bad, to be imperfect, to be human. To say, I'm not perfect, but I'm here. If you're stuck fearing mistakes, remember, nobody expects perfection. Your coach isn't there to judge, but to guide you. Every correction is a step forward, not a setback. Mistakes plus correction plus continuation equals learning. Simple. It's powerful, and once you embrace it, language stops being a battle and starts becoming a conversation. So why input alone doesn't magically turn into speech? Because there's this idea floating around online that if you get enough comprehensible input, watching, reading, listening, that one day I'm fluent. It sounds magical, right? But you picture yourself suddenly speaking effortlessly, your eyes rolling back, you just float into the sky. Hola, mi nombre es Demetrio. But that's not my experience, and it's probably not going to be yours either, because input is necessary, absolutely 100%. You can't speak well without hearing and seeing the language. But creation, actually producing speech, is a completely separate skill. They're related, but they don't magically merge overnight. There's like a messy middle ground. Right now, I know a lot, but when it comes to speaking, I hesitate. I misuse structure. I repeat mistakes, and that's normal. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm not trying to, know every single word. Instead, I'm focused on the 20% that unlocks the 80. Sentence building, pattern correction, and real-time feedback. This supports my life instead of just consuming it. Because language isn't just vocabulary or just grammar. It's a vessel that carries confidence, connection, listening skills, and adaptability. That's the real payoff. When you stop chasing perfection and start embracing creation, you tap into something bigger than just words. You start becoming someone who can connect, adapt, and grow. You don't need to memorize every rule or vocabulary list. You need to use the language to make mistakes in front of someone, to get corrected and move on. That messy middle is where the real learning happens. And it's human. It's imperfect. It's exactly why this process works. So if you want to take a step forward, before tomorrow, say just one full sentence out loud in your target language. Even if it's wrong, that's it. And then just move on. This simple action just rewires your brain to just trust the process. It teaches your mind that mistakes aren't failures, but stepping stones. It makes speaking a little less scary and more natural. So remember, what you're learning isn't just Spanish. You're learning how much control you actually have once comfort gets stripped away. You're going to make some mistakes next week too. Probably the same exact ones, but there will just be fewer. And that's all you need. This process isn't magic, it's human. And that's exactly why it works. So what I'm learning here goes beyond Spanish. It's seeing how much control shows up once comfort gets taken out of the equation. I'll make some mistakes again, just not as many. That's enough to keep on moving. There's nothing mystical about this process. It works because it matches how humans actually change. Some people wait for it to feel easy, and others keep on going anyways. And I happen to be in the second group. By the way, no pressure, but there's a link underneath this video where you can have a look at my paid programs. When you trust me enough and feel like my free content has changed your life, you can have a look at that.